Good evening and welcome to the May 23rd, 2023 Board of Supervisors work session. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. On the roll call, Supervisor Orff was unable to be at this meeting. Everybody else on the roll call is present. Announcements. Township meetings are recorded for the purpose of preparing the minutes, and the recording is destroyed after the minutes are approved. The meeting will be posted online on the Township YouTube channel. The link can be found on the Board of Supervisors page on the Township website. It is requested that all persons wishing to speak before the board shall state their name, address, and the subject matter upon which they wish to speak for the record. In the interest of facilitating the business of the board, all persons addressing the board shall be limited to 3 minutes, unless such time is extended by the chair for good cause. Individuals are requested to remain in their seats and to respect when other persons are speaking. The Board of Supervisors will provide a reasonable opportunity for citizens to comment on any non-agenda items after all agenda items have been addressed, but prior to the adjournment of the public meeting. And I want to announce that we had an executive session prior to this meeting about litigation and real estate. All right. First item on the agenda, Fulmer and Riverside paving project.
This is that would be for me to lead.
Okay, you go ahead, Carol.
We started the conversation, and I have a lot of great support here tonight. But let me start the conversation. So this is about Fulmer Road and Riverside Avenue, where the sewer project has been ongoing this year. We have been evaluating the best solution for resurfacing Fulmer Road and Riverside Avenue as the sewer line project nears conclusion. So the project out there was originally designed in 2015, and since that time, the roads really were only patched as absolutely necessary because there was always this sewer project on the horizon. So in the areas where the road was not excavated for sewer trenches, heavy equipment and extreme rock excavation have added to the pavement stress of these aged roads. So a lot of Fulmer Road is what I like to call pie crust pavement. All right, and that's when you have a dirt or gravel road where they put ID3 or ID3 pavement. They put pavement on top of that without building it up from the base with stone and drainage underneath. The contract that was set up with Doley requires them to restore pavement trenches and to do it with 6.5 inches of asphalt in various layers. And the bid cost for that is over $300,000. When that would be done, the trenches would be the best part of the road. And either side of the trenches would be aged cracked pavement. To properly resurface Fulmer Road would then require milling back out what was put in to build in new layers of pavement, which is not a good idea. So we've instead evaluated road reconstruction. The township has received a quote in the amount of $493,870 to do the following. Mill all of Fulmer Road in place up to 5 inches deep, compact that, and then surface that with 3 inches of asphalt. Existing driveways along Fulmer Road would each be adjusted to meet the new road surface. Riverside Avenue, well, you know, we've just been digging that up so we know exactly what it looks like, and we found that has a much better base. So on Riverside Avenue, the road would simply be milled to a depth of 3 inches, those millings removed, and then the road paved with 3 inches of asphalt. This would provide a very good road surface for the remainder of 2023. We would recommend that the township plan to seal or top the road in 2004. And just to give you a perspective on scope here, the length of the sewer project that was on Fulmer and Riverside Avenues was about 5,450 linear feet. project we're talking about right now, this reconstruction, covers the entire length of Fulmer and Riverside, so there we're talking over 7,500 linear feet. The way that we're talking about doing this is with something called the Keystone Procurement Network. It's relatively new to me, and certainly to the township officials. And the Keystone Procurement Network is, we've talked in the past year about co-stars, buying products through co-stars that's competitively bid at the state level, which allows townships to work directly with those vendors. Keystone Procurement Network is somewhat similar to that. I have asked a representative from Gordian to join us tonight, and Mary Beth, would you be able to talk? There's a microphone right there. We can get you to stand up and just give a little bit of an explanation of what the Keystone Procurement Network is.
Sure, no problem. Maybe move this down a little bit. Thank you. I'm going to just kind of pass the materials around through you. Is that all right? Let's start with this one. So since we're talking about the Keystone Purchasing Network,
Sorry.
KPN is okay. KPN is a cooperative purchasing program. They are a program of the Central Susquehanna Intermediate Unit, IU number 16. Originally, it started out, as most intermediate, out of 29 intermediate units in the state, this is number 16, all across the state of Pennsylvania, there's intermediate units. And they're set up originally to help school districts in all different capacities. And in this, if you're not familiar with an IU, they have special education departments and so forth, but they also have purchasing departments. And they purchase mostly goods for their school districts. However, Keystone Purchasing Network is much more entrepreneurial. They are actually a national cooperative purchasing program. They started out small, purchasing for school districts, bulk paper purchases and whatnot, but they expanded and purchased for their local municipalities over the years across the state. Then we went into multiple states, and now it's a national co-op. There's over 2,000 members that are purchasing in states across the United States and for different things. So that is a flyer that has all kinds of different contracts in it. And in this particular case, I work for Gordian. I used to work for Keystone Purchasing Network actually for 10 years. So I can answer just about anything about KPN. However, in 2015, I took a position with Gordian. So I didn't introduce myself actually. My name is Mary Beth Brennan, and I'm a development rep for Gordian, and I work in 2 states. I actually cover 2 states, and I'm a field rep. So, I actually have to go to New Jersey after this, so. Yep, those are my 2 states, Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Gordian, what we are, is we are a construction data and software company. We are contracted by Keystone Purchasing Network to put a program together statewide so that contractors can bid on pricing for construction, and they can be awarded based upon the primes. I have a map here I'm going to share next. So in this map, the state is separated into 11 regions so that we can have local contractors awarded for GC, electrical, plumbing, HVAC across all 11 regions of Pennsylvania. And KPN does all the bidding. So they actually do advertising in over 250 papers of record across the state, advertising this, which is called Easy IQC. And they bid it by the Separations and Steel Act. And then the contractors who bid this have to include a bid for prevailing wage. So they're bidding prevailing wage, non-prevailing wage for normal and other than normal working hours. How do you bid construction? Well, Gordian sets up a catalog like this. Actually, for visual purposes, brought a catalog. This is not the KPN catalog. But Gordian customizes these catalogs of construction costs for our customers. So that's actually the first step when we become contracted with an entity. So the actual Department of General Services in the state has the same program, job order contracting. And we created a catalog for them so that state agencies can utilize job order contracting as well, and contractors bid on that. The Delaware River Joint Toll Bridge Commission is one of our customers. Penn State University is one of our customers. The Keystone Purchasing Network, the Turnpike Commission is also one of our customers. So again, we customize these catalogs. The catalogs are in unit costs. So labor, equipment, and material costs are one price. And that is what is set by Gordian. Gordian has engineers, and we put these catalogs together. It takes us about 4 to 6 months to put a catalog together. And then once the catalog's together, the contractor bids on the costs in the catalog. What the contractor is bidding is a factor. They bid a prevailing wage factor, non-prevailing wage factor for normal and other than normal working hours. So you might see like a 1%, 1.1, 1.2, something like that the contractors might bid. And then when KPN opens up all the bids on the open bid day, they award to the lowest factor based upon an average of all 4 of those. And then their board of directors enters it into a contract. It's a 4-year term. There's a 1-year contract. At the end of that year, it's extended up until 3 more years, and then it goes out for public bid again. You are in year 2 right now of this contract. At the end of the calendar year, Gordian updates the construction cost catalog. And then the contractors have updated construction prices to work with. We don't print these catalogs anymore. They log into our software, and they build your proposals very, very detailed. So a very detailed proposal, you know, I don't have a whole bunch of these, but it looks something like this. There's this cover page with categories. You can do any kind of job whatsoever. You could do paving, you could do general construction, electrical, you know, municipal renovations, inside, outside work, and everything in here shows you the cost. It's extremely transparent. So I also have something else we can pass around here. This is a legal letter which KPN's attorney provides to us, which explains how it was bid, how it includes bonding, insurance, separations of Steel Act, all of it is included. It also covers federal funding. So if any township has received any federal funds, that language was also written into the bid so that any UGG requirements are included in it. That is, let me explain how to use the program. That's the next step, which Carol already knows, because she has. You enter a project into our system, which is very easy. You just click on a link and you fill out a form letting us know where you're coming from in the state, whether it be the city of Pittsburgh or whether it be the city of Harrisburg, and you tell us what you want done. Just your name, phone number, email address, and what it is you want done. And then we set up that job number in our system so the contractor can start building a proposal. We have a scoping meeting with the contractor and yourself, walk the site, and then they go back and they build that proposal. It takes about 2 weeks for them to build a proposal. If it's a larger project, it might take longer. But for the most part, we allow the contractors 2 weeks to build you a proposal, and then you get that proposal package. Another nice part about it is that you can make revisions. We can go back and make revisions if need be. So if you choose a door and then you want to choose a different door, maybe you want to choose a medium grade door instead of a high grade door for something, you can go back, value engineer it, whatever it might be that you want to do. Change the scope, add scope, delete scope. And that's another really nice thing about the program, that you can go back and make revisions before closing out. Purchase orders go to the contractor, not to Gordian. We don't work for the contractor. We ensure that these proposals are accurate. So we have somebody that walks with the contractor at your site from Gordian who has a construction background, and they ensure that that proposal is being built accurately. They're going to pass or fail it in our system before you actually get the proposal. So if you say you have a dumpster and the contractor puts a dumpster in the proposal, they're telling the contractor, take that out of the proposal. They already say they have a dumpster, and then I'll pass it. Just for, pretty easy, to understand terms. So, any questions so far? That is pretty much the program. It's extremely easy to use, and a lot of townships, school districts, cities, counties statewide use this program. The county of Montgomery uses this program all the time. Okay.
Thank you very much. Does anyone on the board have any questions?
I don't.
Okay. Right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out.
You're welcome.
Jason, is there anything else on this topic? My understanding is this is not necessarily for today, but it could be for today.
It could be for today. As the board's aware, we've been trying to nail this down to be able to get on the schedule. But understanding that the board has seen this number really for the first time over the weekend. I would say it's a want more than a have to. If the board needs more time to think about it. I know we didn't talk as far as how we will pay for this because we have some things to work out. And as I talked to a couple of you today, that we will be able to utilize ARPA funds. That's something that changed from when I wrote the summary on Friday night, and I confirmed with Peter. So we do have a couple of buckets to be able to utilize, and I don't know how nailed down the board wants that before making its decision.
Is there any downside of waiting until our next general meeting?
So I'll jump in there,
Okay.
as township engineer. The board could do this now or do this at your June meeting. The benefits of accelerating it are getting on the schedule to get the paving done sooner.
Yeah.
In talking to the contractor, if the township elects to move forward with this now, we could be on their schedule in early July. As I recall from the discussion, I don't know how soon we'll be on the schedule. If we wait another 2 weeks, then I'm sure we'll push it back at least another 2 weeks. For the condition of the road today, the contractor has been maintaining it and sweeping it. I think when it becomes clear that we are not going forward with having the contractor doing the paving, we will need to start picking up the cleaning and sweeping of that. We could do that under the equipment bid that you have in place today. But that would be another added issue if we continue to take time on this. I'll also share with you that this is the third proposal that I had from Boardman. We actually went back and forth with some of the pricing and the line items to try and trim where we could and bring this price down. It came down by about $50,000 through that process. So I hope that's all helpful information, and thank you for considering.
Well, we are going to pave these roads. So just speaking for myself, I'd rather have it done sooner rather than later. Anyone else on the board?
Yeah, so the number in front of us is it just the paving that is being addressed? Is there other preparation work, drainage pipes underneath the road? Like, is this all in?
Thank you. So there are some cross pipes that actually get replaced that are in the line items here. I mean, that's kind of minor compared to everything else.
Okay.
There's resurfacing, there's milling and resurfacing the entire road, but actually probably the bigger labor thing here is getting all those driveways adjusted to match this road and making sure the drainage works out. That's actually the bigger challenge of this than resurfacing the road on Fulmer Road. So that's all incorporated in here. We've got a unit price contract and plenty of room in the units. What else can I tell you here? I think the driveway adjustments it's a really big one.
Okay.
It's a really big part of this.
And is there a contingency built into this price?
The quantities were developed and then rounded up,
Okay.
a percentage added for overages, so I would not expect an overrun on this contract based on the way it was built.
Okay, thank you.
I have some questions, I guess, too. In terms of, I guess, engineering support, that's a separate issue in terms of inspections, or does that still fall under what's going on with the general extension? Or
In my mind, that would still fall under the general, the project for sewer extension, but we could set that up over the township hall.
And if the contractor starts in early July, I assume that Dolly can coordinate with them in terms of whatever they need to finish, and they're not rolling heavy stuff over a road that's just been fixed.
So the pump station, just stepping back to the project at this point, all the sewer lines and sewer mains are in, all the
Mhm.
laterals are in. They're really working on the pump station right now. So those big pieces are coming in now. I anticipate we would still have Dolly do the paving around the pump station and the private drive. They're still gonna do that. But the heaviest of the things would have come into the pump station by the
Okay.
time we get this contract out there, yes.
And if we go forward with this, does that change our position in terms of working with Dolly on the change order? Does it have any effect on that negotiation, or probably
So-
not?
Dolly knows that we're working towards this,
Right,
and that we need to negotiate a change order to remove that paving from their contract. And we are still in the process of negotiating that change order and what the prices will
and then the only thing that I'm reading here is we can't use our liquid fuels for this
Correct.
project, right?
Correct.
And just to reiterate again, for the public, so of this $493, almost $94,000, about half of it will come out of the money that was set aside for this project. So it's not, we don't have to come up with all the money, just some of it. So what would the board like to do? Would the board like to vote to approve this today, or would you like to delay for the next meeting?
Do you have a question?
I mean, the number's not gonna go down in 2 weeks, right?
No, it's not going to go down.
Okay. Let's say move forward.
Yep, I agree. Anyone else?
Terry, do you have to recuse yourself on any of this?
I will, yes,
Yeah.
if it's going that way.
Okay,
Are you willing to go forward today?
yeah.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Bob.
So I'll recuse
I'm sorry.
myself from voting on this.
Okay, go ahead, Bob.
Bob Burns, Centerville Road. Carol, have you taken into consideration the water issue as you turn on Fulmer from Maine, and you get about 3/4 of the way up the hill, which is not in the work zone as of right now? We have an area that bleeds heavily spring, summer, and fall, and throughout the winter, and it's a major icing condition. So the concern would be further, is that water coming from the water line that's in that section of Fulmer? Is that spring fed? And, do we think that milling and resurfacing with 3 inches of asphalt is going to solve that problem? That's the first question, I guess.
So we have a number of drainage issues with that road that we need to work out along the way. We actually took that walk with the contractor and the roadmaster, and we'll be working with things as we go to establish better. Part of the benefit of raising the road is we get better drainage along the edge. If there is a spring surfacing in some part of the road, I'm sure this roadmaster is very familiar with it, and we could incorporate an under spring box to address it.
Okay. In Dolly's contract right now, obviously, they have a final grade in their line item. I believe it's line item 22, I'm going by memory, so don't hold me to that. Obviously, when a project's completed, they're gonna come back and finish grade everything. Any damage that was done, they're gonna restore all that. So, will there be videotaping done prior to this work taking place, so that when it's all said and done, we don't have 2 contractors pointing fingers saying, oh no, you did that, I did this, yada, yada, yada?
So we always encourage videotaping before a project. We have extensive videotaping from Dolly before they started their project. I would expect that Dolly by July will be buttoned up with any work they would be doing along those roads except in the immediate area of the pump station and the final tying in of certain grinder pumps on Riverside Avenue. So Dolly should be done and over in that area by the time we get through with this program.
All right, so you're expecting that anywhere where they ran off the road and they have to repair stuff, anywhere where materials were stored and supplied, like Hollow Bush, where the manholes were laid in the grass and all that was messed up.
We're working with that on Dolly.
All the laterals
We're working
themselves.
with Dolly on that.
Right, so what I'm saying is, if the road's gonna end up being 3 inches higher than it is right now, if they do that work ahead of time, then we're gonna have a 3-inch drop-off, possibly, depending on how the new grades are. As you said, it's gonna be quite a feat to work to tie in those driveways, and keep everything.
That's why we walk the entire length of the road with contractors, so that we can look to figure those things out. So,
Okay. And then, I understand you're saying that you already have a document for the bid for $494,000 or thereabouts. Do we know what that scope of work is? I mean, did you explain it all in what you said earlier?
I believe I did explain it. The actual itemized listing has been provided to the board late last week, and it's their catalog listing. So it doesn't look like my bids, it's their catalog listing.
Okay. And I believe you said that Riverside will be milled and removed.
Right.
Would it be beneficial for that removed material to be added to Fulmer to help the grading at all?
No, Fulmer's gonna be milled and left in place and rolled. Riverside is going to be milled and retopped because Riverside has a better stone base than Fulmer. And the less we raise the road, the less we have to worry about these driveway tie-ins.
Okay.
As to Fulmer, we've already walked that road with the contractor to approximate the tie-ins for each driveway, so that work's done.
Okay, well then, the last thing would be for the board, I would just say, in my opinion, it would be best to hold off until the change order is completed before moving forward. But I already heard two of you say that you're for it, so I just wanted to get that on the record. And I think that would be the best way to hold off. And Marla, could you please explain what you meant by saying some of this money will be coming out of the original bid documents?
Yes, without going into great detail, originally the expectation was that Dolly would pave the roads. That is now no longer going to happen. So there will be some money out of the contract that was for Dolly paving that will now go towards somebody else doing the paving. Did I state that correctly, Carol? Okay. Does that
Right,
help?
so that's what I'm talking about, where the change order comes into effect. So I believe it's 17 or 18 and 19. Carol can tell us what those two line items were that talk about the 4 inches and the 2.5 inches.
Well, we're just taking questions now about this topic, so if you can wait till we get to the next topic, you
Okay,
can ask
I'm
those
saying
questions.
You're incorporating this, that there's going to be money, so.
Well, there
yes,
will be
we
money.
understand that there's a number in the bid, which Carol said, I believe was $300,000+. So we don't know how much of that we're going to get back, so some of that we possibly could lose compared to what you're saying. Yes, some of it might be available, but.
Yes, but what we're saying is, these people here have experienced hardship over the course of this work, and we would like to pave that road sooner rather than later. And however much is going to come back, the road has to be paved. So if you don't have any more questions on this specifically?
Actually, I have one more question for Carol.
Okay,
I forgot.
that's 7 questions, so.
That's fine. Carol, how about the air testing and mandrel testing? Has that been completed?
Again, these are not relevant to this specific issue. Can we hold these for later?
I'd be surprised how relevant it is. Mr. Sachs could probably help me out on this by explaining it, but I'll
I
wait and see
believe the
what
testing is actually complete. I think the last of the vacuum testing was happening late last week. I can double check on that. Most of the vacuum testing was done
Bless you.
last time I talked to my inspector, and I believe they finished it since then. I'll confirm that.
And did you say the mandrel was pulled?
I believe that was pulled earlier in the construction. The vacuum testing is left for later.
Okay. In reading the one document that I did read, it said that it could be tested in pieces by the contractor, but it was going to be required for the whole testing to be done when the job was completed.
Yeah, they've
So-
been going through, if you've been down Fulmer Road in recent weeks, they've been
Yes.
testing. Yeah.
I've been down there, I haven't been paying attention to what they were doing. I was out talking to residents, so, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So, just to reiterate, there's two separate issues. One is a change order and one is this.
Yes.
This price isn't gonna change. I think the board wants to get the road put back in shape as soon as possible. That means fewer residents will perhaps be upset. And I don't see any reason why we should delay this one extra minute. Unless there's people who just want people to be upset for a longer period of time.
All right, then I would be happy to make the motion. I move to accept the job order from Gordian and S.J. Thomas Company, Inc., dated May 18, 2023, in the amount of $493,869.97 for the Fulmer Road and Riverside Avenue pavement restoration. Do I have a second?
I will second Terry Berg.
Thank you. So Supervisor Hexter made the motion, Supervisor Byrd made the motion, Supervisor Sachs has recused himself. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So the vote was 3-0. Okay. All right, now we're going to talk about the change order.
I think that's me again.
All right.
So this actually relates to the last item. We talked about raising the elevation of Fulmer Road by 3 inches because we're gonna mill it, we're gonna put the millings back down as a pavement base, and then we're gonna put 3 inches of asphalt on top of that. The manholes right now have all been set to the grade of the existing road, so we need to pick up that 3 inches with the manhole lids at the time we come through the pavement. There's a change order in front of you tonight, because we got a very, very competitive price from Dolly to provide stainless steel solid risers, 3 inches high, for the manholes on Fulmer Road. And so that's what's before you tonight, ordering approximately 25 of these solid steel risers at a cost of $275 each, for a total value of $6,875. And those would be delivered to the township so that when the contractor does Fulmer Road, as they get to each manhole, they can install a riser to bring the manhole up to the elevation of the new road.
Okay, so this is going to be change order number 2 for the risers, 75 risers, for a total cost of $6,875.
Yes, 25 risers for 6,000.
Sorry, 25 risers.
There's nothing on here that says stainless, it just says solid steel risers.
Yeah, you're right, solid steel.
I'm looking at the submittal that I had. This is hot rolled steel. The risers are coated with durable, corrosion-resistant, high-performance protective enamel. So it's steel, it's not stainless.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, when you said
Yeah.
stainless
No,
earlier.
thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Any discussion from the board or any questions?
So that doesn't change your opinion?
Now, this shop drawing was submitted to your sewer engineer, Hydroterra, for their review and approval as well. So this is the drawing that was submitted for approval, solid manhole riser. It also was sent over to your director of public works. I apologize for misspeaking.
No questions from the board?
No.
So the change order is just the manholes,
Just for these risers, so.
the risers.
It takes a 4 to 6 week lead time to get these risers.
Mhm.
So that's why I was very eager to get it before you this evening, so that these risers would come in time to work with the Keystone Purchasing Network contractor. On the schedule.
Right, is this related to this specific issue, Bob?
Sure is.
Okay, go ahead.
So Carol, did you take into consideration putting a 2-inch concrete donut in and raising the casting up instead of using the slide-in-place riser that you're talking about? Are you
We
worried
did.
about
So
infiltration for that as well?
We priced actually a concrete riser, because that's the concrete riser is generally my preference with these manholes. I really am not a fan of metal risers. But when we looked at the cost per manhole was going to be much higher if we did concrete risers. And if we did concrete risers, we'd need to put them in now, and we'd have these 3-inch high manhole lids in the road until the paving contractor comes through. And I don't think our residents are going to be very tolerant of that. We would have to lift pavement around each one, and we'd have quite a roller coaster out on Fulmer Road. So myself, Hydroterra, the Public Works Director, I think we even drug the manager into the conversation at points, talked about the pros and cons of each option, and really felt like this was the best for the money and the practicality of being able to get it done.
All right, would someone like to make the motion?
Would you like me to take a whack at it?
How about it?
All right, I'll try.
Do you have to recuse yourself on this or not?
No,
Okay,
this has to
great.
do with Dolly,
It's
right?
Dole,
Yeah,
it's
okay,
correct,
so,
yes.
okay. Would someone like to make the motion?
Sure.
Okay.
Chuck Geiser will hopefully get the motion correct. So this is a motion for Dolly Construction change order number 2 to expand their scope to include 25 risers at a total cost of $6,875. Is that acceptable? Peter?
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second it, Attorney Sachs.
Great. So we have Supervisor Yiser made the motion, Supervisor Sachs made the second. All those in favor of approving this change order number 2 signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Okay. Gosha study draft submission authorization to county agencies. I think that's still you, Carol.
I think that's me again. Okay, so as the board is well aware, there was a settlement agreement with Millpoint Hill. And as part of that settlement agreement, they set aside a specific amount of money to fund the Goshen Hoppen watershed special study for sewage planning. And as part of that, as part of that agreement, the township agreed to submit the special study to agencies for review within a certain window of time. And we are at that window of time. There is a draft study that was presented to the Township Planning Commission last week, just to give them a feel for what was in there and an opportunity to share thoughts. This is asking not for the board to approve this, but for the board to authorize submission of that draft study to the Montgomery County Planning Commission, the Montgomery County Health Department, and then also to your Township Planning Commission for formal comment.
Any discussion from the board?
Yeah. So if this gets submitted to these agencies, right? I guess it's primarily, is it the county and the state? Is that both of them, or just the
No,
county?
this is the county health department, and township.
So what happens if the selected alternative changes? How does that affect the process?
Well, so the point of this is to accept comments and input.
Right?
And then at that point, the township could decide if they want to address those comments by making changes to the plan, or address those comments by counterpointing them. So this is a process, it's a planning process, and really this is your chance to accumulate comments from each of those agencies. But I certainly would not want to submit anything if there were strong feelings regarding the draft study and the conclusions it was reaching. I mean, this is coming from the township to those agencies, so that's why I come to you tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I have lots of questions, and I'm not sure I agree with the selected alternative in one case, or at least I don't feel like I have enough information, so I didn't want to, didn't want to make sure I understood the process, that's all.
So just to follow up on what Supervisor Yiser said, when this comes back with comments, that's another opportunity for us, in addition to the comments, to have other discussions about other parts of it.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And just for everybody here who did not go to Planning Commission, this is a planning document. It does not commit us to doing any particular thing. It just says this is a plan should the need arise. All right, go ahead, Bob.
Bob Burns, Carol, could you tell me, under option E and F, it has a cost for the resident. Is that the correct number? And I apologize, I only had about an hour today to breeze through this.
Yeah, to be honest, Mr. Burns, I don't have the full study in front of me at the moment, but I will tell you that the cost estimates were developed both by Hydroterra and by Value Engineering. In other words, each of us did it and sent it back to the other one and made changes back and forth until we were both satisfied with the numbers that were in that document. So I don't know exactly which numbers you're looking at, but that was a...
It was the cost to the customer, it only had the EDU figure in it. That's why I was confused as to how it could only have an EDU figure.
Yeah,
It's
I don't have it in front of me.
option E and option F, so.
Again, this...
That's fine, thank you.
This is going to agencies
Sure.
for comment, it'll go to the Planning Commission for comment. Before it's all done, it's going to go out to the public for comment as this goes further along. So this is not the only crack at this thing. You'll be looking at this point a few times between now and the point that it comes to you for formal approval. There will be hearings, there will be public comments, there will be comments from other agencies.
Thank you very much.
So is now the time to ask questions, or about the study, or?
So I think if there's something in the study that really hits you wrong, that you're really uncomfortable with, we should probably have that discussion before I send it out. If the general concept of the study is not problematic for the board, I guess really the bigger question would go to Peter in terms of our timing under the settlement agreement to make these submissions.
I'm comfortable with the timing. If we push it along today, great.
Okay.
If we want to, I think ideally we just want to show that we're moving forward. And that we're taking, we're trying to get this done in an expedited manner, but not in a careless or thoughtless manner.
Okay, so if the board would want to set, I'll give you the option whether you want to put something out publicly right now in terms of questions, and I can get back to you at the next meeting, or if you'd like to send me by email some of your questions and comments that I can address at the next meeting, I'll be happy to do it either way.
Well, I mean, I can summarize it. And it mostly goes to the the selected option for dealing with the homes on Salford Station and Schwenk, in that area. And the report recommends option B, which is basically to do low pressure and tie into the system that we're installing now up on Fulmer.
Right.
And quite frankly, I think it's a tough call between option B and option C, which basically does the same thing, but then runs a line down Schwenk Road. First off, if we go with option B, full build out, we're gonna be sending, according to here, 14,300 for rounding, gallons per day of sewage to a system which is ultimately going to a pump station, which is ultimately going to have to pump that a second time. Whereas if we go down Schwenk Road, everybody's grinder pump is pushing it on its way, right? And I don't remember what our current projection is for that pump station right now, but my guess is we're going to be close. If we were full build out situation, you're kind of perhaps doubling the flow through that pump station. So I've been always educated to saying you don't want to pump twice if you can avoid it. And I kind of see that as a problem. In terms of looking at this, in terms of cost per homeowner or unit served, I also look at it, or I can't really do that because I don't have it, but like cost per linear foot of installation, right? I mean, it appeared to me that, option C might be more desirable because, okay, we're serving 40 properties as opposed to 51, I think, potential properties or potential homes. But the cost of the project is less expensive by hundreds of thousands of dollars. So in my mind, maybe it could get built a little sooner based on, the schedule of putting away money every year to try to get it done. So I'm kind of looking at option C, in my mind, is perhaps more desirable option based on the things that I've been thinking about. I know you looked at step systems, and I thought some of the relief with the step system in terms of the infrastructure is that, because you don't have to worry about scouring velocities and other things that you have to do with lines that have solids in them, that, we would have a little bit more latitude in how we size the lines for anything that might come later. I wasn't sure, in there, from a cost perspective, whether or not are we really comparing apples and apples, or are we assuming that the same diameter and type of line that would go in for a regular grinder pump in a step system, is that really the same, or are there savings there that aren't reflected in the numbers? But again, my bigger comment was more along the lines of option C as opposed to option B, and questioning why we're choosing option B over C.
I'll give you the big overview.
Yep.
There were two drivers for that selection. In my mind, again, it was all of us doing it, but off the top of my head, in my mind, there were two drivers for that. One is that we had a resident coming into the meetings here in the recent history that purchased a property up at the top of that hill at the intersection of Fulmer and Southbridge Station that was representing that he had a problem system, and he was looking for a public sewer solution. And that lot is actually a little larger visually than some of the other lots coming down that hill. So we have a number of undersized lots going up the hill on Southbridge Station Road, which leads me to believe that we might need some solutions in that direction in the future. And there was no obvious large lot along there that seemed to me to be a prime target for development, so it seemed like what we would be doing is serving existing parcels along Fulmer Road with that. When we then divide the proposed solution by the number of lots that would be, number of existing lots that would be served by it, it came out much more favorably in a per lot cost for construction. But you're absolutely right, it is a higher initial cost of construction.
Yeah, and plus the continuing cost of having to pump that stuff a second time. I think that was what I was sort of looking at too. That's my, five
Thank you.
nickel take on the thing. I don't know how everybody else
I
feels.
know you to be a man who looks at things thoroughly and thinks things thoroughly, so I don't take a suggestion, I don't take a suggestion lightly. I can take this back to the group and we can discuss a little bit further, and see if it would be the right thing to do to reevaluate the solution.
So following up on that, at whatever point in the future, whether it's tomorrow, next year, 5 years, 10 years, we come upon having to solve these problems, are we committed to the selected solution, or can the board at that moment in time say, actually, this other one is better?
You would again have to go through planning. It would be a planning module or a planning revision to your sewage plan.
So even though all those options are presented in the study, any future board would be committed to the one selected solution?
To some aspect of that, yes. But if you want to do something different, you would be going back to planning again. It wouldn't necessarily be as big as a special study, but you would be going back to planning again in the same way that the 2014 study said, hey, we could run a line on Zieglerville Road this way or that way with low pressure. That was one of the options in the 2014 study, but it was not the selected option, so it's not your current planning. So we need to do a revision to the sewage planning to be able to make that your selected option. Does that make sense?
Yes, but what I'm hearing you say is it could still happen.
It could still happen. yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, not to confuse the issue, but I will point out, again, yeah, as you mentioned, option C doesn't go all the way up. Although it could be extended to go up as needed, I assume,
Yeah.
right?
just-
It's a low pressure system.
Yeah, the only challenge, and I'll leave that to Bob to talk to, is figuring out how to size these systems for today versus tomorrow.
Right.
Easy peasy with gravity, but
Right.
a little more challenging with force fields.
Yeah, and so the only thing I will point out, though, just so we all keep it in our head, and, this didn't come out at the last planning commission meeting, but, we're paying, I don't know how many tens of thousands of dollars for a study along Main Road, right? Because of three failures. And regardless of what you heard at the last planning commission meeting, we have 2 failures, right? Holding tank is only permitted because the system has failed, according to the way our township stuff reads. And then we have somebody who's actually running a small flow treatment plant on their property, which I assume also means that their system failed, and that's why they went to this great length. So that, in my mind, is 2.
And across the street from them, you've got somebody who's got a pump and haul, used to be weekly, I'm not sure if it still is.
So if you get 3 in there, then we're gonna see a repeat of Meng Road, and it's gonna be out of our hands to spend another 50, I don't know what that study is, but perhaps tens of thousands of dollars to now do a study of an area that is not part of option C. Is that a fair concern?
Yes.
So option B does cover that area. So that, now I've taken my argument and taken the wind out of my initial argument, but, you know, just the way my brain works sometimes, sorry.
So does the board want to move this forward today, or do you want to take some more time to consider it?
I'm not saying I abandon option C, I would just like to see a C sharp, you know, with like, a little added to C.
Can you be more
So
specific?
so if you added up Southbridge Station to Fulmer as option C, would that sound better if Bob says it's okay? Or is it too late for that?
You know, the idea of taking sewage that's pumped once and sending it to
Yeah.
a station which got to be pumped again, just kind of from
Understand.
many standpoints rather
But if
than
you pulled it from
me-
Fulmer down to Schwenk and tied it into that system,
Right.
that would be, but is it too late to get a,
No, I have absolutely no objection to adding another alternative to the list and bringing it back to you in June.
Is that okay?
That's fine. I think, go ahead and take a look at it.
Yeah, parse out all the
would
options.
that help?
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
so the consensus of the board is we will revisit this at our next meeting,
Sure.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
June, no?
And just to that regard, we probably will definitely need to act on it at the next meeting.
Okay,
Is that enough time for you, Carol?
Yes, I'll task others on the team to work on that. Thank you.
okay. So we will postpone the approval to move this forward for 2 weeks. Okay.
Thank you for all your attention.
All right, next item, Township Building Use Policy Draft.
Okay, so I'm bringing this back from the March meeting. So the board, as it may or may not recall, we were almost to the point where everyone was comfortable. Peter was asked to provide a rendering on who the township could offer the meeting room to, and he has provided that via a memo, which would have been in your packets. I don't know if you want to speak to that.
So after this was discussed, we looked at this particular issue, basically at 3 items. One, can we limit it at all? Or make this 4 items. Can we limit it at all? Can we limit use for political activities? Limit the use to only nonprofits? Limit the use to only residents? And the short answer is yes, yes, and yes. The actually surprisingly limiting or basically prohibiting the building being used for political activities is very clearly stated by the U.S. Supreme Court. So that is absolutely something we can do. And as far as the other 2 items, nonprofits only, not commercial, and trying to only lease it to residents. As long as we do that in a content-neutral manner, meaning we don't pick and choose between these groups, who we like, who we don't like, who we agree with, who we don't agree with, then that should be fine also. So the concerns I raised and some of the board members raised at the last meeting are actually not something we need to worry about, in my opinion. And if the board wishes to move forward with the policy as written, there are little editorial changes I'd like to make, but generally speaking, as an overall concept, I think it works. And I think it is enforceable and constitutional.
So what you're saying is you will make some minor changes to this draft ordinance per these 3 issues you brought up, or 4 issues you brought up. And then we would consider it at our next meeting for possible
Yeah,
approval.
there are little tweaks. Some of them are just, the way the language, way it reads. Others, one of the things, there's several spots here where there's a prohibition unless the Board of Supervisors decides otherwise. And my general feeling is you don't want that. One, I don't think we want, if we are gonna want someone to make a decision, it shouldn't be at your level, it should be at an administration level. But other than that, it's, you're just more of a grammar and typographical matters.
I just have one question. I may have others, but I have one question now. What happens regarding participation of minors? So let's say it's a youth group, or I'm assuming will require adult supervision.
The policy actually does address that and actually lays out a minimum number of, or minimum ratio of adults to children
Okay.
based on the children's age.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions from the board?
So what you provided to us here in terms of things that are not permitted, right, is private social events such as parties, reunions, receptions, graduations, religious service or functions, partisan political activities, programs involving the sale of a product or service on site or promoting a product or service for future sale or financial gain, fundraising events or solicitation of any kind unless approved by the Board of Supervisors or their designee. And lastly, any activity that is illegal according to local, state, or federal law. Those are the things you're proposing adding?
The only thing, well, that's what the manager, Jason, put in.
Okay.
But my only tweak to that would be the religious functions. We can certainly, under separation of church and state, say we do not want any religious services occurring in the building, but we can't. If a religious group wants to come in here and just do like a business meeting, we can't say, oh, you're a religious group, you can't do that. No, if we allow other nonprofit groups to come in and do business meetings, we have to allow religious nonprofit groups to come in and do business meetings also. So the only thing we could, specifically prohibit would be services.
Okay. I don't have no comment.
All right, so we'll look forward to those minor changes and edits, and we will discuss it at our next meeting for possible approval.
Yes, sure.
Okay, great. Okay, Comcast ordinance adoption. There's going to be a agenda change here. It's actually going to be 2 items, not 1. Peter, you're going to explain that?
Yes. So, hold on 2 seconds. I just want to call this up. Hello? Yeah, you. Thank you. Technological difficulties. So, what was actually advertised for tonight are 2 separate hearings. Both are required. The first hearing, and I'm going to ask the board for a vote to amend the agenda to add this first hearing to the agenda. The first hearing is basically something that we're mandated to do to give the public the opportunity to comment on Comcast's service to this township. And so it's basically just a public comment period for Comcast subscribers to say they're happy, they're not happy, whatever. The part of this franchise renewal process is we are required to do this first type of public comment hearing. That is not mentioned in the agenda. What is mentioned in the agenda is we've advertised an ordinance that would approve a new franchise agreement between Comcast and the township. So those are the two hearings. I'm asking the board to vote to amend the agenda and to add the first hearing to the agenda.
Okay, do I have a motion to amend the agenda to add an item to have a hearing for public comment about Comcast service?
So again, the legal ad mentioned the hearing,
Yes,
but the description here is not verbose enough to
yes.
make that, okay. You need a motion for this then? Is that it?
Please.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we open the hearing or have a hearing to.
For public
allow-
comment.
For public comment on Comcast, current Comcast service.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. So Supervisor Yarzer made the motion to amend the agenda. Supervisor Sachs made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Okay. And now we're going to have the hearing.
Yes.
Okay.
If you want, I can
You go
open
for
the
it.
hearing and explain.
Okay.
So now, as advertised, we're going to open a hearing, asking for public comment to review, quote-unquote, the past performance of Comcast and to identify the future cable-related community needs of Lower Frederick Township. And this is being done in accordance with the U.S. Cable Act. So that being said, if there's anyone who wishes to publicly comment on the past performance of Comcast or any future needs of the township as vis-a-vis cable, this is your opportunity. Seeing none, and this is completely normal. I don't think I've ever had someone comment.
Okay, all right,
We
so,
can close that hearing and move on to the second on the adoption of possible adoption of the ordinance.
so just for everybody here, periodically, we have to renegotiate our franchise agreement with Comcast. The township gets money from that. When we did this, we entered a consortium with, 10, 11?
I think it's 10
With-
others. So
With
11.
10 other municipalities, so that gave us a lower cost. Each of us paid about 20% less because of that consortium, and we got a stronger agreement. So that is the process, so we're now here at the end of the process. It's been duly advertised to approve the new Comcast agreement.
So all I need is a motion to adopt the ordinance. And the ordinance would then basically authorize the execution of the franchise agreement.
Okay, well,
And just to, build on what the chair just stated, the township in this consortium hired a telecommunications specialty legal firm from the Pittsburgh area, who I've known and dealt with over 20 years. They are the go-to firm in the state of Pennsylvania for these sorts of telecommunications issues. And I can tell you, having negotiated some of these franchise agreements singularly for a single municipality, this agreement has gotten a bunch of concessions from Comcast that I could not get when representing a single municipality. So, plus it probably costs less than paying me to do it. So I think the township really came out ahead as much as possible on this.
I'll make the motion.
go ahead.
Are we at that point?
Yes.
Are there any, do we need to ask any questions from the group, or I'll just make it?
Go ahead and make the motion.
Okay. Unless Terry wants to.
No, you go.
So again, this is the process we started in February of 2022. I'll make the motion. I move to adopt an ordinance 2023-02, authorizing execution of a cable franchise agreement between the township and Comcast of Southeastern Pennsylvania LLC, and further authorize the chair to sign on behalf of the Township Board of Supervisors.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
You got the next one, Terry.
Yep, that's fine.
All right, so Supervisor Yizer made the motion, Supervisor Sachs made the second. All those in favor of approving ordinance 2023-02 signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously 4-0.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Demolition of the house on the pump station property.
F, I think we're up to F.
Oh, I'm sorry, F. Yeah.
Um,
Omnibus ordinance, part 2,
Ordinance
my favorite
ordinance Part
topic.
2.
Okay.
The planning commission just reviewed this and issued some recommendations. If the board wishes, this certainly can be something that we could push off until the June meeting to give you guys some more time to look this over. I'd actually like to look it over a little more also myself.
The June general meeting, we already have a lot on that, or the June work session.
There is no, well, I prefer the June regular meeting, but that's more my preference than anything, just to try to get it moving along. But, I mean, we can discuss parts of it now if you wish. But when I was looking this over earlier today to get ready, I thought this might be something, it might be better just to push off 2 weeks.
I'm okay with that. I know that we still need to discuss the proposals from the Planning Commission and what those would look like incorporated into our draft ordinance. Any other comments on the board?
No, I would agree to push it off for 2 weeks.
So is the idea then to have our discussion at our June monthly meeting?
Yes, I believe so. So do you want to incorporate some of the Planning Commission proposals into the draft so we can see what it would look like?
Yeah, I think that would be.
That would make life a little easier.
Make it a little easier, and I also want to think about their proposals. My initial reaction is there's some holes in them, but I want a little more time to really think about them so I can give a more thought-out opinion on them. Or how to, not so much say, okay, I don't agree with what they're proposing, but how to word it better, so it's more enforceable.
Is 2 weeks enough?
Yes,
Okay.
and I promise to talk fast in June, so it'll take less time.
So then can we, if we're okay with what we see in June, then when we vote on it, then the end of the month at our work session, or would you vote on it in July?
The next step would be authorizing advertising.
Right.
And that's the other thought here is, I would like to have an ordinance in such a form that you could say with confidence, saying this is what we want advertised. And if you wanted to take a vote in June on it, you could authorize the advertisement at your first meeting in June. Or if you want, to see a more finalized version, we could then do that at the work session.
And when would it go to the Montgomery County Planning Commission and our Planning Commission in final form?
That would be part of the authorization to vote. Or you can just authorize me to send it to those committees and wait on the advertising.
Okay.
So maybe it makes sense just to put a placeholder on our June agenda for advertising, and if we don't feel comfortable doing it, we don't do it.
Yeah.
Right.
And if it's not appropriate to do it, then, we won't do it, but it's no harm in having it on the agenda.
Exactly, yeah. You'd rather have it on the agenda instead of having to amend the agenda to add it.
So that would be for the advertisement of the ordinance, what would be on the agenda.
Advertisement and sending to the county and township planning
Yeah,
commissions.
okay.
All right. Now we're on item G, demolition. Sorry about that. That's my favorite topic, so I don't know why I skipped over it. Demolition of house at the pump station property.
Okay, so the board discussed this at their general meeting in May, earlier this month. The direction from the board was to secure updated quotes. We've done that. Tommy got that. The demo quote has not changed, and it is still under, it's also under our bidding threshold requiring other quotes. And the tree quote is $900 more than it was in September of last year, which I don't think that necessarily shocks me either with the cost of things.
So both things would happen at the same time, the demolition and the cutting down of the trees?
As we discussed previous, the requirement from Heartland Restoration was for the trees, due to the proximity to the house, that they be removed first, and then the house would be. And as we discussed at the last meeting, determining the state of the house and the potential liability for the township, so that's really what, I think that was also giving the board more time to think about that also, what it might want to do, whether take the house down or do something different.
Any discussion from the board?
So the breakdown is 11.5 for removing the home
Yes,
and $3,500 for the tree work.
yes, sir,
Yeah, okay. So a total of 15, right?
yes, sir.
Sorry, when did we discuss this last? What was it?
May 2nd,
Okay.
Yeah, at our last meeting.
it was at the last meeting.
It was, okay.
Yep. You guys may have discussed this last fall, or it just, or,
I don't think so,
remember.
no.
or maybe it wasn't a discussion, it was just to get quotes to. So what's on your summary?
So the conversation we had in our last meeting, there was a bit of discussion from the public about the value of leaving the house, but the information we have from our staff is that the house is so hazardous that if anyone were to go in there, there could definitely be a very serious hazard. It's not stable at all.
It's not stable, and it provides a place where mischief could happen, right? I mean, we had this happen already, where kids went inside a house and played
Yeah.
with flammable things and set it on fire.
Yes, exactly. Is the board ready to authorize this?
Question?
No, I think we got everything, all the options out in the last meeting. Did the fire department have no interest in training on this house?
When I talked to them, the fact that they can't get in the house safely, so I did talk to Chris, on that, and the fact that, Ryan from LTL
Yeah.
didn't deem it safe enough for them to navigate through the house, I think that kind of takes it off the table for them. But they did, I apologize, yeah, that's right,
Yeah.
they did reach out to me.
Okay. Cool.
I'm fine with it. The only thing I mentioned the last time was that detail about that chandelier that the neighbor helped.
We will do our best to.
He's number 42, I believe, on the Riverside there.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, you'll figure out what to do with that. I was going to say let him know, but you don't want anyone going in there.
No.
No, absolutely not. So maybe the demolition folks can,
We'll take a look and
Remove
see
it.
how far, our,
It's just a matter of taking it down or asking the guy whether he still wants it. He just had some personal involvement in making it. It's an old tractor rim or something. I forget what it was.
Inquire first.
It was cool if you like that stuff.
We
okay,
can
so,
have some indirect fire, if we send RJ.
would someone like to make the motion to approve the demolition of the house and removal of the trees, some of the trees? Terry, your turn.
I'll make the motion.
Only seconds.
I'm sorry, did you make the second? And
I'll
do
second.
Can I have a second?
It's Terry, as you made the motion, right? As
All right,
described
so
by Terry.
Supervisor Byrd made the motion, and that is to authorize demolition of the house at 40 Riverside Avenue and remove the trees for a total cost of $15,000. And Supervisor Yars made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously 4-0. All right, meeting room upgrade discussion.
Okay, Okay, so recently, I had a site visit with RT Chalfront from HSI. The board had, while Jackie was here in the fall, she had secured a quote which actually made it into our budget. After discussions with RT, I had a little different mindset with what I would be proposing as far as TVs. Mainly it's a change in going from one TV on a stand to two TVs, as I've seen it in most of your, I'll say, more modern meeting rooms. You've got at least two TVs on the walls. Sometimes I'm at 4. What I thought, because the quote that the board would have seen in the fall had an 85-inch TV on a stand. That stand was pretty expensive because of the size of the TV. So what I'm proposing is an 85-inch TV on the wall, and then a 75-inch TV on the cart, which is what I had at Springfield. It makes it very versatile. If you change the dynamic of the room, you're able to move it around or provide better views depending on what the board may be looking at, and add some versatility while also having a constant. Obviously, I think the preference would be to have something back here that's not really working with our kitchen. And so we'd probably be looking at one of the areas on that other side. And then once again, I think the stand then would provide, or the advantage of being able to move around, or if the board, kind of like you guys had with the budget meeting where you were in your view kind of down off the dais. And that's the main, that would be the main cost change. I did have the microphones wired instead of just wireless. I just think it's easier. I can tell you the wireless mics, as we've experienced with this one from time to time. Yes, so I think wired over the long haul is the better way to go. The camera pricing ended up being $5.40 cheaper. So the camera that we're proposing would actually be up top and give the full advantage, the view of the meeting room. I know that's been one of the things that, we have the camera, which is actually a computer camera that we've used for, it just sees the board. I don't have it on this quote. I think in the future as an add-on, and I did talk to him about this, is having some type of camera that would be able to be like in front of the dais, that if we have a developer or we have people talking, we could pan into that. I know as kind of phase 3, I believe the board has talked about doing something with the dais that kind of, as opposed to go straight across, more what you see is a U-shaped horseshoe selfie. So that's something to consider. But I don't have it on this. I don't have it on this quote. The computer was removed from the original quote because we had a need to get our meeting room computer. The labor would be $3,000 more with having the TV wall mounted, as opposed to the quote that was received back in the fall. So overall, so the fall quote, that was for $16,233.85. As I said, that was in this year's budget. This quote is for, if we, for all options, would be $18,826.09. Obviously, the board can choose whether, we can break it out if the board's not interested in the multiple TVs, or if you would like me to do something different, if what I'm envisioning doesn't work for what the board had envisioned. I know this was like phase 2 once the soundboards got up and fixed the acoustics.
I have a question about the camera. So it'll be mounted, I'm guessing, from the ceiling, but is it going to serve the same purpose as this one? Because what would be really nice is if the camera would kind of pan when people are speaking at the microphone. We could the public could see
So
people
that,
speaking as well, especially when we have presentations or we have developers in here. They're just staring at us the whole time.
so that was, I had asked, I had talked to him about that, that's something similar we had in Springfield. You could actually pan 360.
Mhm.
So now there's a much smaller room, but at least, the audience can see who's
Yeah.
doing the talking. So, that is something I can either add on, or if that's the camera that the board's interested in, and then that's just something that I manage while I'm running the meeting. It's not, it's like anything, you have a remote.
Well, there are these cameras that will do it that are like sound activated.
I've used, one of the, especially when the pandemic hit, the owl was a very, a lot of entities went after the owl. One of our supervisors brought his in. It kind of was a mixed result with where it would
Okay.
focus on. I know the sound generated stuff, sometimes when you're not, if it can't see who's talking, or it didn't seem to function as proficiently as you, especially with the cost of that camera, as opposed to kind of manually doing it
Right.
where, maybe it's stationed on the board, and then when people are talking, you can kind of spin that around. So if that's something that the board's more interested in, as opposed to having the camera that would be up installed in the back, that would kind of show the whole room.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel that we have enough people who come on a regular basis to speak that the public who's not in the room, and even the public that's in the room, they're just looking at their back. I think it would be useful to see who's speaking.
Yeah, I think the challenge, it was trying to get all we have going on out in front, but that's something,
Yeah.
and that's one thing with the height of our ceiling, and that's why some places have the projectors that come out of the ceiling. I don't think that would be a very good look, and I think the TVs actually would eliminate the need for the projector, because you can do everything with the TVs. So, but no, I can have them take another look at that.
Not for me.
Yeah, I would just mention a wired mic, yes.
Okay.
We don't have to keep track of batteries, that's a whole nother issue, and making sure they're turned off.
Yeah.
Soundboard, Mark picked that up for like dirt cheap,
Yeah.
because our old board had this really bad hum and buzz, and we got rid of it.
Yeah.
So that was like, I think he said maybe a little over $100 for that thing.
Yeah, he took a look at it. He thought it was much older than, and I couldn't say otherwise.
But our old board had a really bad hum that would just come and go during meetings.
Uh-huh.
And that was the reason we got rid of that.
So yeah, the technology is kind of matching with what we would be looking to bring in, and
I agree with what Marla said, if there's a way to get a camera that
Okay.
moves a little bit, but if we can't, I think you've seen them too, the camera angle, that Worcester uses for their meetings and their videos seems to be pretty decent. If you have to settle for a fixed camera, it sort of would be like over there and sort of capture the board and anybody who was talking to the board. So maybe that's something, if you want to pop on their page and look at their videos.
Okay.
It's an idea.
I mean, I could certainly, maybe as an add-on, and look at both option, or like, I think obviously, from what and I know the meeting has, long been wanting, the boards have wanted to improve the experience, for the long haul, and how do we want to function in the future to better serve the residents that are on Zoom, but also, we struggle where most people can't see behind,
Right.
the screen, and I remember, when we were able to project it up on the big wall back in the day so that everyone could see, so.
Yeah, I mean, I did a presentation in Lower Merion Township, which has a lot more money. And, they actually had like an operator
Yeah.
moving that
Yeah.
camera around and doing the whole
He
thing.
did joke about bringing someone out. I'm like, no, I think it's gonna end up being the manager, so that's fine.
So for the TV set, then you're looking at maybe that wall?
Yeah, I was probably thinking more towards the back, and it would be commercial grade, so you could, that is another thing with the pricing is, and I think, most, you understand you have kind of commercial grade and residential, and tends to hold up with the type of use that we're, using, and
Okay. And then you have the second TV, which would be on a cart.
that would be on the cart.
Now, would that be a TV that could go places? So where I'm reaching to in that thought is like at the recent park board event. And they had a TV that they, looked like it was in sort of a ruggedized case that went out to the pavilion.
I don't know how excited I'd be on that.
I think Bill McGovern brought it out in his truck, but
But-
it was in a ruggedized case that kind
Yeah.
of popped up. Pam knows about it, you can talk to her.
So, yeah, I don't know how excited I would be to see it not being here.
Yeah.
But certainly, because once it's kind of on the cart, at least with what we, it's kind of stuck on the cart. You're not. So I haven't, with what you're talking about, with what they had at the, I can't recall what that TV came out of, so.
Well, it wasn't that big. How big was it? Maybe
Pretty
50
big.
inches
I thought it was
or
like
something?
60 inches at least. but-
Yeah, it may not have,
Pam knows it.
it may
Yeah.
not have been as big either.
But it can go, for example, it could go into the little conference room.
Yes.
It could
yeah,
go
you
into
wheel
the
it.
office suite,
Yeah, I wheeled it all over the room, because I used a lot for zoning and stuff. It made it a better experience when you're talking to residents and you're pulling the overhead of the property. I mean, it provided that, as just, it just didn't sit in the meeting.
So for example, we could use both in a meeting, so maybe they would be mounted
Yes.
over there, and then you could put the other TV screen in another area, so everybody in the
Mhm.
room, maybe even including us, could
That-
see one of the views.
That was my thought with, I think, a TV over there. I think the audience could see that, and I was thinking the cart would be, more for the board to see up close, or vice versa, depending
Okay.
on which wall we decided to put the wall TV on. But that was the thought I had. They would both be in, as far as the meeting goes, and that way, everyone would be able to see what the board's seeing, and we could, it'd be more advantageous kind of getting more stuff up on the screen, which I know is something that the residents would like, especially when we're looking, kind of like we did with the planning commission and looking at the maps or whatever.
So would these things connect wirelessly to the?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's, because it's a little out of my
Yeah, each one.
comfort zone, but yeah, there's
Yeah.
wireless. Yep.
Yeah, they have transmitters, receivers.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of both TVs. I would be more comfortable if they're actually both on carts. This
Both
room-
on carts?
I mean, this room is difficult. We've
Okay.
tried different configurations.
Yeah.
We spent $3,000 to stick a $1,700 TV on the wall and don't like it. It's $5,000 to take it down and put it back up.
Okay,
Like, just move it around.
okay, no, that's,
That's my,
So would that then be two 75-inch TVs?
it's just gonna come down to cost.
Okay,
Like I said, the quote last year had it on a cart. That cart, I think it jumps up with that extra size. 75 is kind of the base with the cart we have, and then it jumps up pretty significant just because of how much heavier it is.
So maybe-
75's on an $840 cart.
And I think the
For the
85 was on
75.
almost a $2,000 cart, I believe.
All right.
It was pretty high.
would it be okay to have two 75-inch TVs? I mean, maybe that would be,
They work, I mean, it's, like I said, I thought of a stationary, but that's,
If we do it where we wanted it,
mhm.
I'd agree.
No, I'm with you, Terry, because, we put it on the wall where we think we want it, and it doesn't, you're right, where it doesn't work out, because that's a big part of the labor for the wall, so if we have the mount card, that actually would cut down that cost then.
yeah. So- And you said this is in our 2023 budget?
The quote from last year for the 16,000, yes, that is in this year's budget.
And it sounds like if we don't wall mount the second TV, it probably will come pretty close to.
I think it will come pretty close.
Okay.
I'll obviously work in an extra camera break. The way I asked him to break down the quote is that if we're not interested in a component, we can just cut it out and still move forward with it. So I can have him do that again with a camera that's, we can do the panning like Chuck mentioned, but also if we want to keep the one in the back and then also have one that's more up close.
You have any questions?
No.
Okay.
Sounds all right.
All right, so, any more questions on this? Okay, so, you are going to update the details, and would the board be prepared to potentially vote on this at our next meeting? Is that the plan?
I believe if, I see no
Okay.
reason why it wouldn't be,
Yep.
unless he can't turn around the quote, but I'll shoot for the June
Okay.
6th meeting.
No, that would be great, because I know that I'm on some meetings virtually, and it is sometimes really hard to hear.
Well, especially
Some
with the
things.
sound, because what I didn't,
Yeah,
you know, the extra speakers, all that's gone. So, yeah, we're getting into the modern age as opposed to the,
that's great.
yeah, I know. It was quite the learning process when I got here, when I was like, wow, like, there's a lot of stuff. As we know,
Incompatible
some-
pieces, yeah.
So sometimes the jobbers, they don't work as well as we like, and so, okay.
Okay, good, all right. Last item, non-uniform defined contribution plan discussion.
Okay, so, as the board is aware, the non-uniform employees do not have a qualified pension plan. This means the township does not receive pension state aid. Current pension situation, I call it convoluted at best. This would stabilize the township's current situation and provide a better benefit for the employees. I'm recommending PRMS. I was part of PRMS when I managed Union Township. They were easy to work with, and they provide the one-stop shopping as they are the actuary along with handling the plan and the funds. I think this would get a plan for us in the most expedient manner, and they would help us create our plan documents. PRMS administers over 1,000 pension plans throughout the state, and what PRMS stands for is the Pennsylvania Municipal Retirement System. What I've listed is the plans they have to offer. Is the defined benefit. This plan is considered a traditional pension retirement plan. It's based on a 3-part formula relating to a member's years of credited service, final average salary, and the plan benefit accrual rate. The more common, especially for the defined, I consider it more the defined contribution plan, or this is what many municipalities is going to, is the cash balance. This plan, which is technically defined as a defined benefit plan, has many characteristics of a defined contribution plan, and that is account-based. The account is comprised of money the municipality funds into the account, the money the member, if required, or if they so choose, funds into the account, and any money the member optionally contributes to the account. Unlike a pure defined contribution plan, the account does not make or lose money with the market. Rather, the account only makes money at the regular interest rate as set by the PA Municipal Retirement Board, which is currently 5.25%. So this is, Springfield moved to a plan like this. Now, they didn't have PRMS, and you had an actuary, you had a separate actuary, you had a separate, Morgan Stanley was kind of the, they were the advisors, and then you had a separate entity that was actually managing the plan and the money. PRMS does everything, which is why I say it's, you know, it's the one-stop shopping. There's not a bigger entity in the state that has the pensions. And I did provide the board kind of an overview. The municipalities that utilize it that are in Montgomery County. And then just some summary of the different plans and, you know, the benefits of each. So really what I wanted to do is just get this in front of the board so you guys can start thinking about what you might do as far as the non-uniform pension plan. I can say that I am expecting to see our draft handbook hopefully this week. That's what Roseanne had reached out last week. So I think it kind of coincides with fixing this along with, as we know, as our handbook, which is, I think, 30 years. I think it was
Yeah,
updated 30
that's
years ago.
our human resources manual, which is yeah, almost 30 years old.
So I just wanted to get this out in front of the board. I wasn't looking for any direction, other than if the board thinks it might be interested in this approach, as opposed to us drafting a plan, which I think I said we have a draft, and kind of going a different route, which can take longer, and it's just more, it can be a little more convoluted. I went through changing Springfield's from PRMS to the current entity, and it took months to get that changed over. We're fortunate that we're starting from scratch, essentially. So where our current employees have their monies going to, that would stay, and then we'd be starting from ground zero with our newer employees and employees that are not currently receiving pension benefits, on the non-uniform side.
So at the beginning, you said we'd be eligible for state aid, and is that only if we go with PMRS?
Not necessarily, we just
Okay.
we would need to come up with a qualified payment.
And what would that look like?
It would have to be approved by, yeah.
So this is an approved plan, we'd have to find somebody else with an approved.
But what would that state aid look like? Can you explain what that would look like?
State aid, so for every year, the state comes up with a formula that determines how much state aid a municipality might receive. You have to, it's for the previous year, and you have to be employed for at least 6 months or more to get counted as a credit. Now, non-uniform are counted as half credits, police officers are a full credit. So, for instance, Springfield Township, which had 11 full-time employees, that included 4 police officers, I believe last year would have received like $73,000.
Okay.
So it can be fairly significant. Now, at Union Township, we had 6 full-time employees. The way they set up their plan, the state aid actually covered the full MMO. So that's what we'd be getting into. We do this for the police, where we have a minimum municipal obligation that we have to pay at least to the plan every year. You can choose to do more. It depends on how the plan is how it's doing financially, and how how funded it is, based on a percent that's determined by the actuary when it's done every 2 years. That usually goes through. It's every 2 years.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing, it's definitely an advantage to us.
It would be an advantage to us.
To do this.
And would simplify, it helps both the back end as far as the administrative, but certainly for the employees, it's easily understandable. We can still keep the 3 years vetting, vetting, or that would be all part of the process as far as determining how you want that broken down. But also once the plan's initiated, it would take once we're 3 years into the process, then the township could be receiving state aid.
Okay.
Whereas right now, the
We're
township's
not,
getting
yeah.
nothing for the non-uniform.
Yeah. Great, well overdue that we make this transition, so thank you for bringing it up.
So I think if you look for more information, or I think maybe it might benefit if we set up a meeting and maybe designate one of the supervisors to kind of sit in, just to kind of help clarify, or if you want me to just sit on a meeting, I don't know how you guys want to handle this. I mean, pension, for people who have not dealt with a pension, sometimes it can be confusing. It's taken me 12 years to be able to talk as I'm talking today about it, because I never experienced it until I got into OBGYN. So I don't know how you guys want to look at that, but I figured this was a start to kind of.
So what's the next step?
I think the next step is, unless you guys were okay with it, is do you think PRMS is maybe is a good option for us to proceed with, or do you want me to look at something different? And then going through what kind of plan the board envisions.
I have a question. Yeah. is this something that Roseanne can be helpful with
That's good. Yep.
in terms of saying, yeah, I've used this, work with these people and they're good? I know you have a reference point, but.
Yeah, I would be, I don't know if her, you know, I don't know that Laura, because she was at Laura.
This is not, they're not on the list.
I mean, I can tell you I have clients that use them and
They're happy. That was my next
Yes.
question, was
Yes.
for you.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not just my testimony.
All right.
No, yeah, they're happy.
Okay.
I certainly would recommend this. And
Okay.
I've also had clients, if you run your pension plan correctly, the state aid covers the MMO, and you know, it really works well.
And then, so the amount of time that it, once we decided on this outfit, then is gonna take probably several months to figure out what it is we want to get from this outfit, right? Is that what I understand?
Honestly, because they've got the templates and what I provided you is the kind of the sample kind of plan documents. I know there's a lot that I threw at you guys in Dropbox, so I believe we could get there quicker as long as the board decides how you want the plan built, which is, I think we can get there very quickly based on the fact that they've got the templates. We're not recreating the wheel here, so to
Okay.
speak. So
But we have to make decisions.
Yes.
Like, you know, you have a menu of options, you have to make.
And I think that's, you know, kind of utilizing Roseanne is maybe helping with what she feels would be a benefit. You know, obviously, you're trying to take care of your current employees, but, you know, what's attractive to potential employees also as far as the benefit plan. So I think Roseanne could certainly help with her experience in the multiple municipalities she's worked with as far as the design of the plan. Because I've had it, you know, where we vetted within 2 years. I've had it at Springfield where it was 5 years to be 100%, but you gain 20% each year. There's a lot of ways you can do things
Okay.
as far as that goes.
So are you looking, what are you looking from us today? Just kind of consensus that this is the direction we want to go in?
Honestly, I don't need, I'm not looking necessarily for direction.
Okay.
I think it's just, you know, providing you the information
Mhm.
and then in a, you know, either at a regular meeting or we can save it for the work session, where the board's had time to digest, if there's questions or anything that comes out. And then I can circle kind of back with Roseanne maybe during that time and see maybe what her thoughts are on how the board might divide or define the plan as far as the specifics.
Okay, well, does the board have a preference to do this at our general meeting or our work session in June?
The work session?
Yeah, we do already have a lot on our
Yeah, I mean,
next meeting.
so I know we want to get this straightened out. For the 3-year, maybe it's a question for this outfit. So if we decide by, say, it takes 3 or 4 months, say 6 months at the worst, and we make that first contribution or funding in the calendar year, is it a calendar year or is it an anniversary date? The way that state.
I think, I could be wrong here, but I think what we should be aiming at is to get this in place so it starts January 1st, 2020.
Keep it
Yeah,
clean.
right.
Keep it clean. You know, certainly the MMO is calendar year, the state contribution is calendar year. Any contributions we look for from the employees are gonna be calendar year. So it'd probably be cleaner, and I actually suspect, you know, the state system's probably gonna say, yeah, we'll get this established as of January 1st. In order to do this, the board's gonna have to adopt an ordinance. So you know, that right there is basically a, you know, 30-day lead time minimum. So I think that's actually a reasonable goal, if we aim for it at the beginning of the year.
Okay.
So it sounds like there's no tremendous urgency to do this in 2 weeks, so maybe
Yeah.
talk about it at our work session in June? Is that acceptable to the board?
Yeah, I think so. And this is the biggest provider in this currently?
Oh, my
in the space?
goodness.
Okay.
Yeah, there, I mean, I could have gave you I figured at least a list with Montgomery County.
Yeah.
For municipalities, obviously.
As far as municipalities.
There's the state system and there's the teacher system, they're bigger. But as far as what we can use, yeah, I believe this is, I guess.
So we just need to keep our eye on the ball in terms of the clock, right? Because whatever decisions we make go into our budgeting in the fall.
Correct.
So we
And-
should probably have that figured out well in advance.
And that'll be the big part of how the board wants to devise the plan, is, how it's being funded. Like I said, I don't need to get into that tonight, but that's gonna be the main thing for the board to decide before we can move forward, and get the plan documents. But certainly if the board's interested in PRS, I can reach out to them and have a physical contact meeting with them and, kind of give me the answer. Or they can, yeah.
I think that should happen in advance of our June work session meeting, right? If we're okay with that.
Yeah, she responded very quickly to when I reached out to her. I just didn't, she gave me enough information. I didn't think to reach out, or I didn't think I needed to reach out before I presented to the board, so.
Okay. All right, great. That brings us to public comment. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Amelia Sin with 36 Smith Road. I know you guys are very familiar with the Smith Road project, so I'm here to just provide a quick update. And I did have a couple questions at the end as well. I am happy to report tonight that Value and MAC Engineering met and came to a consensus for what is best for the property and what the Sims are responsible for. So, Carol, I want to say thank you for your help today with Matt. We are very happy to say that this has been resolved. As many of you may or may not know, we were involved with, we had 3 lawyers. We were talking to multiple members of the township, real estate agents. We even contacted Al Manning, who we bought the land from, just to let him know what's been going on. And most recently, the state representative was also made aware, just so that they could contact the local government research committee on our behalf. So I would sincerely like to thank everyone on this board and in the audience who have listened to us for the past few weeks, and I really should say months, because we've been at this since October. After going through multiple stormwater reviews, the township line complication, which led to the tax, Peter, I know where we're at with taxes, so we're in good shape there. The zoning hearing, we're hoping that the committee can tell us that we've completed everything that we need to get the building permit. Everything that's been asked of us since October has been completed and also paid for. Keeping in mind, this has been a project that Blake and I, he's on our call now, have been in contact with since April. And we're just hoping that with everything that we've been through, we can just kind of get to the end here. So I had 3 questions tonight I did want to ask the board, as far as, where we're at and what we should be expecting. I would love to just have a nice answer so that I can go back to sleep at night and stop stressing over this, this project. So my first question, Carol, when Matt submits the new approval or the new paperwork to you, I'm assuming that we're pretty much in good shape for a quick turnaround?
So your engineer will submit to me the plan that is revised to address the comments in my second review.
Yes.
And we spoke today about how he's going to work to address some of those comments.
Yep.
So that is reviewed by me.
Yep.
If all the comments are acceptably addressed, the next step is preparation of an O&M agreement, which actually goes through the office of the solicitor.
Great.
And then that's set up, that's actually a document that gets recorded along with the stormwater plans.
Okay.
When that's all done, the township at that point would be issuing permits for grading and the stormwater.
Excellent.
Probably an oversimplified version, but that's pretty much it.
That's fine, thank you, thank you. So after the stormwater is complete, I think we've gone through everything that can be gone through on this piece of property, so I just want to confirm, is there anything else Blake and I could possibly run into before we get our building permit? Jason, I'm sorry to be looking at you, but I'm not sure, Peter, if there's anything else that could be a surprise.
I mean, the O&M, because they have, yes.
Yeah.
The O&M agreement is the only thing coming out of my office, and that will be done, they'll be done well before the permits.
Excellent.
Yeah, so, unfortunately, as far as building code goes,
Yeah.
neither of us are building code people.
Right, and,
But, when you apply for a building permit under the Uniform Construction Code, Pennsylvania, as long as you do, once again, you gotta comply with everything, you gotta show you comply with everything. Ryan,
Yes, I've been in touch with Ryan.
Ryan will review it to make sure that's the case. If that's the case, he's gotta act on it within 15 business days.
excellent.
So it's not something you
And
can
I-
drag out. He could get something and say, hey, your application's incomplete, put
Right.
it back to you, that restarts the 15
Sure.
business days. But once the application is complete, it's 15 business days, he either has to issue the permit or he has to issue a rejection letter telling you specifically why you don't comply and what you have to do to come into compliance.
Perfect, perfect. And so that actually leads to my last question. Jason, I'm pretty sure when I spoke with Ryan and you, he picked up the papers, correct, that Burke sent? Did he pick them up or did he not pick them up?
I believe he has, but
Okay.
but he's coming in.
He comes in on Thursday, or Wednesdays,
So
yeah.
I will
Okay.
follow through, because I know you guys submitted that. You guys submitted that a couple of months ago, so
Yep.
Ryan was made aware, because we had to wait for the zoning hearing.
Yep.
And he's certainly aware that you received the variance for the side setback.
Yep.
'Cause I think that was some of the initial confusion on the zoning permit.
Yeah.
So I believe it's in his hands, and I
Okay.
think, when I talked to him last on understanding the whole stormwater thing and
Yep.
stuff, so. But I'll,
Okay.
I'll confirm where he's at, that, I think I thought it was ready to go. He
Yeah.
was just waiting on the stormwater, and. we
That's
didn't-
what
we
I
didn't-
thought I
We were gonna
understood.
change the date, understanding that we can't issue the building permit without the other stuff.
Right, right. Yeah, if he's in tomorrow, Jason, if you don't
Yeah.
mind just connecting with him. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and yes, hopefully it'll be more smooth sailing from here on in. Go ahead, Bob.
Bob Burns, Zieglerville Road. So this question's for the board. Terry Sachs will probably remember back in 2017, 2018, when we had a three-person board, and Bob Yoder was the chairperson, I brought up about speed limits throughout the township. And it was kind of funny when Bob said, what'd you do, drive around all the roads and see which ones were missing signs? And I said, yes. So while I was out campaigning over the last 2 months, I happened to be on Perkiomen Avenue, and a couple of residents had brought up to me about the excessive speed on Perkiomen Avenue. While I was there, witnessed two such people driving faster than the speed limit would be, even though it's not posted. So this board's aware that we've, issued permits, 7 houses, I believe 6.5 of them are completed, or 5.5 are completed. There's one that's just started on 3rd Avenue, so with all these different trades coming and going, and, new people moving in with the 7 homes, those people aren't the original people that lived there. So I reached out to Jason, I think it was about a week and a half ago, Jay, does that sound right? And asked Jason if he could talk to the chief and maybe get our black box, which I think is called a JMAR, and get that put up on a telephone pole or a tree or whatever, since there's no street signs out there to mount it to. I did have the opportunity to talk to Carissa last week, and I asked her if she could look into it as well. And I believe Jason was either in contact with the chief or with Sergeant Cass on the same thing. So, obviously, depending on what's going on there with the JMAR and what we find out, we still have the issue where we have multiple roads throughout the township that doesn't have signs. And here again, Jason did talk to Tommy to find out whether he had signs or didn't have signs or whatever. Sounds like we don't have very much in stock, and that possibly could be an expense that, you know, would come out of our budget somewhere. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention for that. At one of the previous meetings, I brought up about the hydrant fund, and maybe Peter would probably be the best person to ask here. The hydrant fund is basically, the way I understand it, Schwenksville Water Authority charges the township a certain dollar figure, somewhere between $8,000 and $9,000 for the entire year. Jason had brought this to our attention earlier, and apparently we have almost double that amount of money in the fund. The other, I guess, bigger part of this whole problem is that this thing dates back to whenever it was first started in the 80s. So only certain people have been being charged for the hydrants, not everybody in the township. So I guess it was kind of like when we had the old streetlight district, only certain people were charged back then, and then we got rid of that. So this water hydrant situation is still at large and still needs some clarification. So I don't know if it's something that you guys can work on, figure it out. I don't know if it's something, since we have that amount of money, that would cover next year's payment, if there was a reprieve for next year and nobody pays any taxes on it, and then the correct people that are supposed to be in the fund end up paying the appropriate amount. So they're the two things I had for the board, and I have a couple questions for Carol, if that's okay. Carol,
Go ahead.
I had asked you a question about the testing on the sewer laterals to the estate lots, and you had mentioned to me at the last meeting that Bob Preston's team was out there doing that. So.
No, I said Bob Preston's team inspected the installation of the sewer lateral from the main back to a point.
Okay, so I talked to him on Thursday night, and his reaction to me was, I can only go within the 20-foot right-of-way from the easement, so I only inspected it. He said apparently Schlau had put one length of pipe, which normally is 13 feet, so they were already past the right-of-way. So it sounds like that either after he looked at that, then he left, and either maybe your inspector or Ryan picked up the balance to the termination points at the two laterals?
That would be LTL, yeah, they did the plumbing. The LTL would do the plumbing to the house, yes.
Okay, so what I'm trying to say is, the original sewer main that was put in, we had a 20-foot easement running through the property. The two stubs came out, and when Schlau was here, they air tested and did everything, and everything passed. Now, we've gone and taken those pipes apart and added pipes to it, but we haven't air tested from where we took it apart. I don't know if a clean out was put in right away so they can be tested at a later date, but that pipe has been run, whatever distance you want to call it. Obviously, to Janet's house, it's run a lot further than it is to the old farmhouse. So I just want to make sure at some point in time before the final plumbing permit is pulled to tie both of those in, that we don't forget that portion of that line has not been air tested.
Yeah, that really falls on LTL at this point for their connection, when that house is connected, yes.
Okay, so I guess that's something that maybe Jason would have to,
That's part of what LTL would normally do when a new sewer connection is made, is an air pressure test. That's normal.
I understand it's normal, but that would be normal from where they're gonna pick up. It wouldn't be normal to go back to where the new contractor installed that extra length of, that extra footage of pipe. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, unfortunately, that falls between LTL and Hydroterra at this point, Bob. I don't know the answer.
Okay. Well, all I can tell you is Bob told me he only inspected that first length of pipe. The second thing is the paving at the intersection where the crosswalk is. you had said that you had mentioned to the developer that they needed to correct that.
Yes.
Obviously, it was wintertime last year. I handed a petition in to the board asking for some clarification there as well. Was wondering if you had had any conversations with the developer and when they plan on doing that work.
Did have conversations with the developer about that very recently. Had the solicitor in the room for the conversation as well. And they are proceeding with survey and evaluation of that. I don't have an exact date on that, but it's part of the punch list items that they're working through right now.
Okay, great. And then I believe you were working on a storm sewer project for Zieglerville Road that I noticed the surveying was done. I was wondering when you would have something on that at an upcoming meeting.
I am still waiting on the base plan, the full base plan of survey with the boundary lines laid in, and there was a delay due to an unexpected loss of the CAD draft that it works for me. So it's coming, but I don't have an exact date on that.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Ernie.
Ernie Schmidt, Silverbrook Drive. After the last election, I'd come here asking a question about Area 1 voters at the Lower Frederick Fire Company and Area 2 voters voting at this position here at the township. Again, we had another election last week, and I'm just speaking here for the fact of democracy and the right to vote and how people appreciate the right to vote in our town. I know nothing was probably done after I gave you my spiel about why maybe we should adjust where people vote from maybe possibility moving your Area 2, say, to a public school building or another building like they do in other municipalities, and that to start the wheels moving. We have a situation at the fire company. I know we've been voting there before when it was one area, and then it was split, and then you had half the township votes there. The center core here votes at Area 1, and the rest of the township, the surrounds, votes at Area 2. I don't know anything's been done about that. I know it would take some time, meeting with various officials from the school district, the county board of elections, and the proper procedure to go through. The building up there, even though it's been there for a while and we voted there, the building's been there for a long time, and it was the basis of where we always voted in Lower Frederick until we split with two districts. I would like to see it ultimately moved. The handicap accessibility up there is absolutely terrible. Doesn't make it right that we've been voting there for, say, 100 years, but it doesn't make it right. And somebody should look to the future to change our voting place here and to have something that's more readily accessible for people that are handicapped. I mean, you have a handicapped parking spot up there, there's one spot, and that's it, and you can barely read it. The sign hasn't been replaced in years, but it's there. And you see people coming up, everybody has to walk up a grade there to get to the building, and then if you're really, really handicapped, you can't make the steps, you go up the side grade, which does not meet the tolerance for ADA compliance. I'm just asking, if nobody's worked on this before, and I don't think anybody did, give it some thought, and let's see if we can make it happen in a few more years. Thank you.
So just
Thank
to
you, Ernie.
follow up, I have given it thought, and from what I can tell, we have to go to the county board of elections and make our case there. That's where it starts. I think the school district is probably obligated to supplies for the polling place, but it starts at the county board of elections. I did check into that. Unfortunately, there are also ADA issues with this building too, unless.
These are minor here.
Minor, yes, compared, but I did check into that to see, that's where you would start. And I support the idea, no issues with it.
I agree with Ernie as well.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree as well, and I think,
Thank you, I just
Yep.
brought it up as an idea.
yeah, I think both districts should be there. I think it makes sense that everyone knows they have to go there. If they have to figure out where they go when they get in the building, that's fine. But if it all goes to the middle school, and then you can have one gauntlet of people with pamphlets and flyers, and we don't have to just run through and vote and get out.
Yep, thank you for bringing that up, Ernie.
And I do realize we all have the option of mail-in voting. which would do away with this. But we know that in our country, a lot of people don't like mail-in voting, they like to come to the polls. And I see many old people come up to Area 1 and vote, and I see them struggle. That's all, I'll end it. Thank you.
Oh, no, I wholeheartedly, I've watched, even in this building, just to help people get back out
Yeah.
to their cars are in, they need assistance. So I'm not sure what we would do, Mr. Solicitor, to make this happen or to start the ball rolling, but.
I haven't dealt with this in Montgomery County, assuming the process is the same as in Bucks. You are correct, you have to go through the county. The township needs to kind of push this. Usually, at least in Bucks, the county board of elections is flooded with these requests. Also with, requests of, polling stations that are too crowded, too many people, we need a new polling station. It's something where, in my experience, it's gonna take 2 or 3 years. While it certainly makes sense to have a single polling place for both districts, there is a rule that the polling place must be, it doesn't have to be within the district, but it must be within a certain distance of the district. I don't know what that distance is off the top of my head, but I want to say it's maybe like a half mile. But I'm not sure, but that's something, what I would advise is for the township to figure out where they want the polling stations to be, to make sure those polling stations meet all the requirements legally, and then once we know that, put forth basically a petition, to the Board of Elections saying, hey, we want our polling places moved here, here are the reasons why, and then start pushing. But yeah, like I said, at least in Bucks, it usually takes a couple of years.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Any more comments, questions from the public? All right. Thank you, everyone. This meeting's adjourned. Travel safe, everyone.